Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. I also just want to let you know to put on the notifications so that you don't miss any video if you like the channel. So, I am going to go ahead and dive back in to Fat Acceptance TikTok. We didn't really take a breather, but I was looking at things. And this is a topic that Fat Sapphic Bro is going to cover that I have wanted to talk about a long time. So let's go ahead and get into it. We got more tea in this video coming, but let's go ahead.
This commenter is asking.
Oh, sorry. I always forget to read it. Can you go into more detail on why obese is a derogatory term, but fat isn't? All I came up with is that obese is a medical term that might not apply. So this is very interesting because fat acceptance will push and push and push that fat is not derogatory, but obese is. And this is obviously not reflective of any history. This is not how the words have been used, really, except for very recently. Typically, for many decades, the insult was fat. You're fat. You're so fat. Get out of here. You're fat. Wow, look at fatty, right? This type of stuff was said to people. Obese has only really been used as an insult recently, in my memory anyways. Typically that was used in more of a medical context, and it only recently has been used as an insult. So I want to hear the sort of weird mental gymnastics of Fat Sapphic Bro. Let's go.
If I can go into more detail on why obese is a derogatory term, but fat isn't. They said that all that they came up with is that obese is a medical term that might not apply. So first of all, I only speak for myself. I don't speak for all fat.
That's fair enough. But you are a prominent voice in the FA movement. So let's see.
People, or all people that share my marginalizations. I try to only speak from my own perspective. But for me, it's the fact that the word obese is a pathology. It is a word that they decided to create to make my body size a medical problem.
So I think this is something that I've suspected of fat acceptance for quite a while. I think that my version, Alex's version, of why they don't like the term obese is because obese is objective. There is an actual meaning of what obesity means, whether you're using a body fat percentage or whether you're using BMI. There's still some kind of objective number, and obesity has to do with an actual reaching of a level of fatness that puts you into a medical category, being obese. Then there's also morbidly obese and super morbidly obese. So I actually really like those categories because they really help describe what is medically happening to a lot of us. And it really makes a lot of things different. Our bodies do react differently to a lot of different things depending on which of these categories of obesity we are in. So I think it's really important to have these delineations and to have these categories. The FA doesn't want that because they don't want a solution. They don't want there to be a cure for obesity. They don't want there to be an answer. They want this to go on forever. I think in large part because A, a lot of these people make money off of it, and B, because a lot of these people just want to eat like hogs every day. I don't know what else to say. I know that's harsh, but I just have to keep it 100. That's another reason why. Now let's continue.
And a medical diagnosis. Whereas fat is just an adjective. It just describes a body that is bigger.
Fat is subjective. Fat is more insulting. You can call almost anybody fat. It can be used, it's been used against a lot of women that are not particularly big. They've been called fat. You know, the media uses it as a word. It's very subjective. Fat can be a feeling. Obesity can't be a feeling. Obese is not a feeling. Other with fatness, you can run into the Taylor Swift anti-hero conundrum of feeling fat, which they all hated because for some reason, and I get that a lot of their shtick is to control language, but they really put a lot of effort into objectifying the word fat or making fat objective, even though within their own spectrums, within everything, it's completely subjective. It's fat is a subjective term, but they want to act like or make you act like it's an objective term, that you can't say you feel fat. That's, I think, part of why they want to get rid of the word obese, because obesity is not a feeling. Obesity is a medical term describing a physical and logical and objective measurement.
But obese is a pathology. It is a diagnosis word.
Because they don't care about the fact that it's used as an insult or dehumanizing or whatever. Fat has been used as an insult. So it's very interesting, the sort of double think, the 1984 quality of these people.
I just personally hate the way it sounds. It just sounds gross. Like,
okay, well, I get that you don't want to acknowledge the physical realities of your obesity. I get that you want to live in an alternate universe where this is not causing any problems. That's your decision, but I don't think it's ethical to push your delusions onto everybody else, particularly younger people, particularly the target audience of TikTok.
I don't know. And then you get into like morbidly obese and extremely obese.
Those are very useful. So it's super morbidly obese and morbidly obese. And then they might have a category beyond that. I only know because that's the category that I've been in. I'm very close to being just morbid. And I can feel the physical differences. I can feel it. I'm starting to feel better. I can tell that these categories are based on some type of science, because when you reach these levels, you do feel differently. At these sizes, your body starts to act differently. They didn't come up with these just out of their ass. They did research, they categorized things. I mean, come on. I get it. You know, I guess science is only good when it agrees with you, right? That's a classic thing of a lot of these people, but let's continue.
All of that. And anytime you want to label anyone with the word morbid, that should draw some.
Okay, well, morbid has to do with deadly. So you can have a sort of disease that can become a morbid disease, especially within a medical context. It's not personal. It's just reality. I don't know what is with these people, but they cannot accept that certain terms and certain things, they just describe reality. They're not describing anything that attacks you as a person. Saying you look fat is much more of an attack on your person than saying somebody is medically obese. Let's get it together.
Pause and thought, in my opinion. Similarly and only tangentially related, like.
Okay, and then Fat Soffer Bro goes on a tangent about them being trans, which I don't know is relevant, but we'll listen to it.
Really, my medical record says that I have gender dysphoria disorder. I don't believe in that for myself. While I understand some people have dysphoria, I don't really deal with dysphoria in the way that a lot of trans people do. And I don't like that they call simply not identifying with my assigned gender as dysphoria, and I don't love that either.
So dysphoria has to do, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but gender dysphoria has to do with feeling incredibly uncomfortable in your own body because you feel that you were born in the wrong body to a certain extent. Again, admittedly, the trans movement has changed so many terms and so many things. I don't even know anymore. I'm going to keep it 100. I literally have no clue anymore. But forever, it was that gender dysphoria is essentially you feel like your mind is not connected to your body. And there are many conversations about what to do about it. But again, Fat Sophic Bro doesn't want to acknowledge anything as being an issue. But if there wasn't an issue, it wouldn't require intervention. Right? So that's where I get very confused in general on this issue. It's very, very confusing. I will say it does make sense in terms of Fat Sophic Bro that they don't want anything about them to be diseased or whatever. But Fat Sophic Bro literally has diseases. So they are a very weird person. Very bizarre in a lot of ways. They have conflicting realities within their mind. Now let's continue.
So I just wanted to throw that in. I know it's not totally related, but it was on my mind. Anyway, thanks for this question.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to add on. I don't really know, but I think it's more so trying to connect something that isn't the same. So obesity is not the same thing as gender dysphoria. It's not the same thing as being trans. They're totally different topics. They have very different consequences, very different options for treatment, very different things. There are different takes. They're both debatable. They both are constantly debated. But just because something is debated doesn't mean it's the same. And I don't think it's useful to combine the two things. I think it's just all the more confusing. I am more confused about trans issues after hearing that. Fat Sophic Bro, I want you to know that. I have even less of a clue of what you're talking about.
I hope that helps. If it doesn't,
It doesn't.
or if you need any further clarification, please feel free to let me know. Thanks.
I'm very confused. Okay, let's continue. Oh my gosh. So this person is like very, very wild. I will probably do more videos on her. So she's supposed to be a ED recovery person. And I wanted to cover a couple of her TikToks because she really threw me for a loop. Really threw me for a loop. So let's go ahead and watch this one, which I will say I do love that it has Taylor in it. I will just say that. In college, I wanted to be skinny and healthy. I tracked my food and worked out every day. I wasn't exercising enough. I wasn't eating enough and exercising too much. 1 year later, got diagnosed with BED. Okay. So, what I wanted to say to this is that this not eating enough and exercising too much is not corrected by overeating and not exercising enough. I don't know what is with a lot of these people, but they really cannot find a balance. And I get it. I get that EDs are a huge struggle and that there is potential for whiplashing going in between EDs and stuff with certain people. In my opinion, if it's a very severe version, you're not ever going to be the other one. Like as somebody who was very deadly BED, extremely severe, there isn't a shot in hell that I could ever be Anna. That will never happen. Ever. So it's very hard for me to understand, but I do understand in less severe forms, people can switch. I get that now. I didn't know that. I think you guys in my audience, you guys kind of let me know that because that was a revelation to me. But I think that's what this is. If you're not eating enough and exercising too much, then start exercising a bit less and start eating a bit more and adjust until you reach an appropriate level where you're feeling better and kind of go from there. I don't understand this concept of jumping right into the exact opposite. This person is gaining a lot of weight on their page and they're celebrating it. They're so happy about it. And it's like, I understand that weight gain can be a part of, restrictive ED recovery because your metabolism is very slowed. And there's just a lot of issues in regards to that. It's very damaging to thyroid as well. It slows your metabolism. It does all these things. So it does make sense to me that some people would put on weight. But it just, I don't know. It seems weird to me that you just would keep gaining like that. I saw this with William too. It's strange to me. It's very, very, very strange. And part of me thinks it's because they believe that weight is completely genetic. And so they think that they can eat whatever they want and they're never going to gain weight. And that's not true. So I get that it's a touchy subject, but I do think that a lot of these people, they use their restrictive ED as a weapon, which I don't think is very common. I can assure you, as somebody that had very, very severe BED, I would never use my BED as a weapon. I mean, it's a bizarre response to this type of thing, and it does make me wonder if people are perhaps being overdiagnosed. Now, as a part of that, let's go ahead and look at her next TikTok where she's essentially going to tell me that I have an ED. So let's look at this.
People on this app who think they're promoting a diet are actually promoting disordered eating. If you do more than 5 of these things, I'm sorry to say, but you are no longer on a diet.
So what I will say is, what is this criterion that you're using? Where are you getting this from? Is it coming from out of your ass? Citation needed, firstly. So her first sign that you have an ED is that you measure all your food. So I count all my calories. Big whoop. I measure how much sugar I put in my coffee. I put about 3 tablespoons. That's not even like super conservative. I put in 3 tablespoons of sugar and I put in 2 tablespoons of half and half. That's how I take my coffee. That's my favorite form of coffee. It's just sweet enough. I love it. Whole thing is 175 calories. I know that because I measure it. But according to her, that means I have an ED. Do you see? How are you supposed to lose weight at all if you can't measure your food? So I want you to think about the things that she's saying on this list and just realize she just doesn't want anybody to lose weight. And I know that some people who cannot, some people that are pretty thin, they don't need to lose weight. But in the case of people who are super morbidly obese, losing weight can be life-saving. So how is somebody in my position supposed to fix the issue or get better, get healthier, if I cannot measure my food? It's a little crazy.
You measure and weigh everything you eat, and add an extra point if you also measure your spices and lettuce.
Okay, I think measuring spices is a bit much. Lettuce, I don't know. It does have some calories, but it's very, very, very minute. It's like, I think for a whole bag of romaine, it's about 60 calories. I do count it, but it's just because I want to have as close of an estimate as I can, but whatever. You plan for binges. So I don't think I do this really, to be honest. I do plan on, I'm not going to count calories on Halloween. I'm going to go see the Taylor movie on Halloween. For the record, if there's any Swifties in the audience, I'm going to be in my red era. I'm going to wear red, and I'm going to try to finish knitting this red hat that I'm wearing, and I'm going to be red. I have a red scarf. So I'm going to be red Taylor when I go see the movie, but I'm trying to go when nobody's going. So I'm going on Halloween because I hate people, and I'm just kidding. No, I'm just introverted and I want the least amount of people as possible. So I'm going on Halloween because I don't do much on Halloween, to be honest, anyways. And it's scary because Taylor's a satanic witch. So it's like the scariest thing I could go do. She's an Illuminati satanic witch. So that is actually terrifying. So I think that's the best thing I could do for Halloween. That's the scariest thing I could do for me. So I'm totally doing it. And I'm going as Red Taylor or Red Era. And I'm not going to count calories. I may or may not pregame with some candy. I may or may not see what goes on in a hoodie I may wear. But there will be candy. There will be plenty of calories that day. Now, does that mean that I'm planning for a binge? No. Realistically, I haven't been eating that much anyways. I'll probably just end up eating at maintenance. But I want to have, I just want to not worry about it that day because it's a holiday. And so I'm going to have a chicken, and then I'm going to have a bunch of candy, and that's it. And that's on period. And I'm going to love it. And I'm indulging in sin because I'm seeing Taylor, and that's sinful. So no, I'm just kidding. But you need to just get all the sins in one night. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. It's my purge. I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, does that mean I have an ED? Really? Because I'm probably going to eat more on Thanksgiving. I'm going to eat more on Christmas. Especially considering I'm going into the winter, and I think being out of a deficit some days may help me sustain throughout the winter. That makes me have an ED. This is crazy.
Plan your calories to allow for a strategic binge. For example, eating an entire Domino's pizza. Number 3.
That's not a binge. So she doesn't know what she's talking about. I don't even know if she is even diagnosed. I'm just saying, girl, when you said that, that makes me think that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. That makes me think that you weren't diagnosed, that you don't know what binges are. BED is not having one Domino's pizza. That's not a binge. A binge is having 2 Domino's pizzas, a gallon of ice cream, a whole 2-liter bottle of soda, chips, and pie, and another thing. That's a binge. Okay? And to have BED, you have to do that relatively often. I don't know the exact criteria, but you have to do it relatively often. And it's typically from an emotional place. And that's where it comes from. But that's a binge. One pizza is not a binge. That's just overeating. That's you ate too much that day. I think that that's just ridiculous. There's a difference between overeating and binging. So I don't know. All I'm saying is it makes me question some of what you said. That's all I'm saying. Because that's called overeating.
You feel out of control whenever you eat your favorite foods.
Okay, so I don't know if that is necessarily an ED. That could be food addiction related. That could be, let's say, if you're severely hypo, like I was, in recent memory, I was very, very, very much craving carbs and sugar because I was keto, and I was very, very much craving it. So I would eat a lot of it. However, I don't as much now, like I said. But it's sometimes things like that can happen from a nutrient deficiency, or if you're not getting enough of something, you can overcompensate. The body will seek to balance what you're lacking. But that only happens after a time of restriction. So if you haven't been restricting, then it's not physical, it's more emotional, which is, again, she's right. It could be an ED, but it could very well be a BED. It depends on how frequently this happens, how much you're actually eating, and if you're eating a meal that I described at least once a week for, I don't remember how long it is. You have to look at the criteria, but there's a specific criterion to meet BED. So having one whole Domino's pizza once in a month is not having BED. That just isn't. Eating a lot, that I'm going to eat a lot on Halloween, that's not BED. It's, you're conflating things. You're confusing people. It's not okay.
Whenever you eat your favorite foods. Weigh yourself daily and add an extra point if you weigh.
Okay, so weighing yourself daily is not any kind of a sign of an ED. That is just crazy. I think it's completely normal to weigh yourself every day, especially if you're in an active weight loss journey. You might want to keep track of trends. You might want to see how things are lining up. I personally, I do weigh myself every day, but I also, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't care. You know, the past week I really haven't cared. But there were times when I did care a lot and I'd be checking every single day. It's like, I'm definitely going to weigh myself tomorrow, but you know, it's like, I just don't think that that's connected. I think that that's way too broad of an overgeneralization. You can weigh yourself just to monitor yourself. Self-monitoring is not an ED. This is just so exaggerated. I think she's a liar. I'm just going to have to say it. She seems like a liar to me.
Yourself multiple times a day. So you think
You assign moral value to food. I don't know. I don't think this is an ED. I think this is just people have different views on diets and stuff. Like some people think meat is bad. I think they're wrong. Some people think carbs are bad. I think they're wrong. Some people think I'm wrong for seeing seed oils are bad. I think they're wrong. You know, it's like people have debates. They can decide things. They can look at things, try things out. That's part of freedom. That's a part of, you know, diet. Everybody needs to figure it out for themselves. But of course, I will advocate for what's working for me. And this has been working. I've lost 50 pounds since February. I've done really, really well. I don't feel overly hungry. I have much more self-control. I'm healing in a lot of other relationship-wise ways. Like I'm having an easier time relating to people. I'm healing mentally and all these different things, like, and physically, you know, with time. But it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to say, you know, I've tried all the other diets. I never had the results I've had on this one. I never have. So I'm going to talk about it. And sometimes people get upset about it, but it's like, okay, if you don't agree, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't care if you're eating differently than me. I don't know. I think it's odd. I think if you care a lot about how other people are eating, it's a sign that your diet is a bit too restrictive, or it's like you're deficient in some way because it's giving you a lot of hunger or you're feeling weird. I don't care. If somebody eats McDonald's French fries in front of me, it doesn't insult me. I don't get my feelings hurt. I don't get disgusted. I'm not a vegan or a keto. I'm not like that. Okay, let's continue.
good and bad foods exist. Number 6, you think health can only be obtained by thinness.
So I don't know that it can only be attained by thinness. I don't think thin is the be-all end-all of health. But I do think if you're severely overweight, as I am super morbidly obese. I will continue to use that term until that's no longer true. I know they hate it so much because it's very objective. It's a very objective terminology. I am super morbidly obese. I absolutely do need to lose weight for my health. If I was underweight, it would not be good for me to lose weight for my health. If I was average weight, it wouldn't be the best for me to lose weight. That wouldn't be the primary factor of my health. There would be other things going on, but specifically and especially from super morbid obesity, it is absolutely relevant to health. And it is ridiculous, reality denying lies to act as if that isn't true. And it's disgusting. Now that is disgusting to me.
Number 7, you don't think a calorie deficit is a diet.
Okay, this is just such a reductive thing to say. If I don't think a calorie restriction is a diet, then I have an ED. a calorie deficit has to do with losing weight. Anybody who wants to lose weight has to be in a caloric deficit, whether it's through just naturally eating less or through counting. For me, counting has worked really well. For other people, not counting has worked relatively well. One of my best friends, his name is Eric, he lost about, I think 40-ish pounds, and he just exercised and changed his diet. He didn't count calories, and it worked for him. It works. Different approaches like that work for people, but regardless of what you're doing, if you want weight to be lost, you have to be in a caloric deficit. I'm not a calorie denier just because I think seed oils are bad for you. So that's not an ED to understand reality. The same is true if you want to put on muscle, you have to eat more, usually. Just saying.
Number 8, you blame yourself when you don't get the results that your diet promised you.
So I don't think that that's necessarily an ED. I just think that that's sad. And I think that this takes a bit of critical thought. So I think that we have to look at how are we going to judge things and judge the results of things. So for me, I did various diets. I did veganism. I did keto. I'm really debating. I actually have old videos of me talking about these diets in 2021. I'm really, really debating on reacting to them and talking about my experiences with these diets and kind of how I got here. Let me know if you guys are interested in that, because I've been debating on doing that for quite a while. The other thing is, what I realized with those diets is, one, especially like veganism, I was starving. And I mean starving. And I was eating a lot of calories. I actually was eating so much. I was gaining huge amounts of weight when I went vegan because I was so hungry. And when I was keto, I would hit this really, really hard plateau. And my mental health was deteriorating over the time. It was getting worse and worse. I was developing issues in my relationships. I got to the point where I wanted to cut off my mom. I didn't want to ever speak to her again. And these things are not normal for someone like, for me at least. This isn't normal. I started acting very erratically. I was very hungry as well, and especially craving carbohydrate all the time. And it just got worse and worse, and my hypo got worse, much worse on keto. Now, does that mean that I should blame myself for that? No, I don't think you should. I don't think that that's right. Sometimes diets just aren't good. Sometimes they especially aren't good for you. And I try to talk about that on this channel a lot when it comes to being super morbidly obese. When you're in that category, your body is weak. So shitty diets don't work very fast. A lot of you guys that are more fitness related, muscle related, you're thin already, or you're not that big, when you do keto or you do vegan, you may feel better. You might feel great for a while. You might have a boost. You might feel something. But for somebody who already has a weak system, we feel like shit immediately upon doing these diets that are not sustainable. They're not a natural human diet. In my opinion, they're not. And so it's like, I don't think it's always our fault if a diet doesn't work. I don't think that's a good mindset. And that is something that a lot of people do feel, but that's because a lot of people tell them that. And I want that to change. That's why I'm here. I want there to be some actual solutions to this. Let's continue.
Number 9, you experience anxiety when anyone other than yourself prepares your meals.
So I don't know about this. This could be true or not. Not really. I just think it's important to think about what is it that you're trying to avoid. Like, if I were having a meal prepared by somebody, I would definitely not want seed oils in it. And for me specifically, I don't tolerate gluten at this time. I do think as I get healthier and less hypo, I'll be able to tolerate gluten again. But for now, I can't. So if I knew somebody constantly was cooking with that, especially flour or whatever, I would really ask them, did you put this in there? Did you not? You know what I mean? You have to kind of ask people things sometimes. And I wouldn't want to eat something like if somebody made me a cake or something and it had canola oil in it or Crisco or something, or if it had, soybean oil. I don't want that. That's not going to help me. That's not going to help my thyroid. That's not going to help my weight loss. It's going to set me back in a way that I honestly do not need at all. So I don't know about getting anxiety. Like sometimes I feel a little anxious when I'm at a restaurant because I know that they use shitty oils in all their food and it's horrifying. But you try to get the least thing possible, But it's like, I don't know if that's an ED. By her standard, any vegan would have an ED. Anybody who's keto would have an ED. Anybody who has celiac disease would have an ED. Anybody who is doing what I'm doing would have an ED. If you're worried about anything being in your food, then you automatically have an ED, according to her. It's a little reductive. Again, I don't know what is with the agenda of watering down what an ED is.
And number 10, you think anyone who brings awareness to EDs is chronically online.
This comment.
Okay, I don't know. That last one was so cringy that I just cannot even with her. So I'm not even going to entertain it. Anyways, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. I'm sure I probably said some stuff that was a little spicy in this one. Not really, but spicy, but not. But let me know what you guys think, and I will get back to you guys really, really soon. Thank you so much for watching. It's good to be back. I will talk to you guys again later. Have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Period. Talk soon. Bye.